all we had to do was agree, and we would have closed our biggest round yet. But then they were started to impose a lot of conditions I felt threatened the integrity of our platform as a developer friendly, or that we cared about developers. We took on the complexity, and we have become much more consumer oriented, and we have relatively very low churn rate. And ApyHub is providing the building blocks that AI agents can use as Lego pieces to put the software together.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejillo. APIs are one of the most fundamental building blocks of modern software. They are how products talk to each other, how teams move fast, and how developers avoid reinventing the wheel every time they ship something new. For years, APIs have been the quiet infrastructure layer that makes scale, integration, and reuse possible. Now AI is putting real pressure on that layer. As more applications become AI-enabled, expectations around speed, flexibility, and abstraction are changing. Developers don't just need endpoints anymore, they need composable, reliable building blocks that work seamlessly with AI systems, automate complexity, and still give them control. The way APIs are built, discovered, and consumed is starting to shift. To explore that shift, I am joined by Samuel Kaluvuri, CEO and Chief Architect at ApyHub. Samuel has over 15 years of experience building and scaling developer platforms, and at ApyHub, he is focused on making APIs more accessible, reusable, and developer-friendly in a world that is rapidly becoming AI-first. In this conversation, we will talk about the evolution of APIs, how AI is changing what developers need from platforms like ApyHub, the decision to open source Boyden, what it means to bootstrap a developer marketplace, and what really matters when leading and scaling technical teams today. Samuel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here, and it's a great opportunity to share my learnings and experiences.
Yeah. Today you are the CEO and Chief Architect of ApyHub, and you are also a CTO of Adwars. Can you walk us through what a typical day looks like and how you balance those responsibilities?
Yeah. So right now, both at ApyHub and Adwars, where I split my time, I try to organize my days not as a overly scheduled day, where everything is earmarked with meetings or this and that. But I actually try to schedule my days in such a way that 50% roughly of my time is spent in scheduled meetings with external customers, partners, internal management meetings, to align on strategic directions and things like that. And the other 50%, of my time I spend on talking to the operational side of the business, which is talking to the engineering teams while they're building stuff, making sure that if they're encountering any architectural issues or even implementation level challenges, if I can unblock them, or if I can guide them in the process, or also trying to get feedback from users, trying to understand, how to interpret the feedback, working with the operational and support folks where issues are being given and so on. So generally, I try not to be overly scheduled. I try to prioritize for information flow, shorter feedback loops, and trying to be available and accessible to make sure that we are, as a team and as an organization, we are able to react much more quickly. And we don't have any grandiose of, we are a Fortune 500 company and everything needs to be scheduled and we'll talk in a week about it and so on and so forth. So that's a formula that's working for me so far.
Do you block your calendar to make that happen? How do you make sure you have 50% of that time not blocked? Many people, it's they start their week and they look at their calendar, it's already packing and packing and packing, and they can't help it.
Yeah, if I'm given a choice, obviously I try to prioritize. I try to pace myself. And if generally, if I do have a little bit of control over my calendar, so it's not like people just book meetings. I mean, that happens, but not as often. I mean, so I'm also I have to appreciate the everybody around me. I mean, to actually make this work. Yeah, so that's how I've been able to manage it.
It's an
It's hard.
amazing, yeah,
It's hard to have that discipline, but it works so far.
an amazing team culture as well. I love what you said about I have to be grateful that my team respects and understands that, and you all work together on that.
Yeah.
I love it. Um, Looking back at your 15 plus years in engineering and leadership, what would you say are the three biggest milestones, good or bad, that shaped your career?
Uh, Hindsight is 2020, right? I mean, you get to draw lines and connections that you don't see it while you're going through that phases. But when I look at the most important milestones in my career, I mean, like, or they might they're not the kind of milestones where we've launched something, where we achieved something, or we made it kind of a successful things. But I feel the milestones are more like, where they moved or they changed the trajectory of my career, or they helped me grow as an individual, as a professional, and these kind of things. So when I started my career, I mean, I just wanted to be an architect. I wanted to just be, in my cocoon. I mean, like, give the guidelines, let somebody implement it. In the sense of, like, I was a lone contributor, sort of, and I enjoyed that space. Of course, I used to work with others, but I was a lone contributor, so to say. And I enjoyed that space for quite a while. I did my PhD, all of that in SAP, working in SAP, where it helped me play that role even better, right? I mean, because it's a PhD, you're doing it alone, so you're focused on this and everything. But I think that one of the biggest milestones was when I moved to Netherlands and I got the opportunity to work in a startup called Leapist, which was instrumental in changing the whole perception that I had around my role, what I can do, and so on, because I was thrust upon building the platform. I didn't know. I mean, there was no decisions taken. It was just organically. I mean, I suddenly felt like I was responsible for the platform, and I was working with internal stakeholders, sales teams, support teams, operations, even finance. To build this platform of Leapist, and it taught me a lot of how to design platforms that actually scale and cater to all of these different user types and user personas. Because until that point, if I had this typical developer arrogance in a way, like, oh, we designed it well. I mean, if the customer didn't, or if the user didn't understand it, it's their problem. But when you start to actually grow and you start to realize that you have to cater for different types of audiences, different demographics. I mean, like, so that was a hugely important role or milestone in my career, which shaped how I build software since then. And I can see the change in how I build platforms, how I think about software, and all of user experiences, everything. That was number one. The second thing is a continuation of that, which Leapus got acquired by another company called Edcast, which is a US company, edtech company, the same space. And as soon as the acquisition happened, I mean, almost within a month, I was also trusted, or I was entrusted with leading the integrations team of Edcast. So that was another big responsibility. Now, suddenly, not only was I working with internal people, which I was used to and I was getting comfortable with. And then I was started to work with a lot of the external people. Now the suppliers on one side, I mean the customers on the other side, and it also taught me how to solve problems, how to present, articulate the company's position in front of customers, and so on. So that was also very a pivotal point. And the third thing was much more recent in the sense of if I look at it as a milestone, which was when we started ApyHub. Within 1 or 2 years, I mean, we were talking to we were talking to VCs, and we to raise funds at that point, and we got a very good offer. What I thought on paper seemed like a good offer. And we got the term sheet. All we had to do was agree, and we would have closed our biggest round yet. But then they were started to impose a lot of conditions that I felt threatened the integrity of our platform as a developer friendly, or that we cared about developers. We wanted to not go or not become like every other platform out there that was like, started out with good intentions but lost its way, kind of a thing. So we refused to take that offer, and that made us struggle for the next few years to be a bootstrap company. I mean, and then survive on a by our own wits in a way. And but that was instrumental also for me to show that we are not here to compromise on our values, on why we started ApyHub, and we wanted to stay true to its intent. So I again, a lot of it is also thanks to the teams that surrounded me that I was able to do it. But if I look back at the three biggest milestones, somehow that taught me something or showed me or affected my trajectory in a way, as I said, these would be the three things.
So you mentioned Lipist, you mentioned Aircast. You work there in the founding team of Lipist. You work in integrations at Aircast. How did those experiences influence your decision to build developer-focused platforms, and what ultimately inspired you to start ApyHub?
Um, well, it's interesting. I mean, again, it goes a bit into the previous answer that I just said, which is in Leapist, I learned how to build platforms that scale and so on and so forth. I mean, and but one thing I realized in Leapist is how much of because we were one of the early adopters of microservice architecture and these kind of things at that point, and we realized that we were building a lot of these components and services that I wish we could outsource. There was no real core business value for us, but we had to do it because we needed it for our platform. So I was wishing for something like what eventually turned up as ApyHub, an aggregated marketplace where we could just use stuff and so on. The second thing that I learned when I started with integrations is it's a mindset. When I started when I looked at the API providers, so be it like these large enterprise systems, HR systems or LMS systems, which is or content systems, most of them would say, "Here is our API. We designed it. We put a lot of effort into designing it. Now it's your problem to go implement it." So there was not a lot of, I mean, and of course at that point, I mean, the whole concept of developer experience and this started to become a thing, but people didn't really care at that point, I felt. So when we started doing ApyHub, building ApyHub, the business model was very important. It was influenced by my learnings from Leapest and Edcast, where instead of paying for 10 different services, we ended up with one subscription, what I call as the Spotify model for ApyHub. And the second thing is even within the platform APIs that we provide, we took on the complexity. And we have become much more consumer oriented. So the marketplace generally is like a perfect balance between providers and consumers. We skew towards the consumers more. So a lot of our, that's also one of the reasons we have a lot of the users who come to our platform stay with us for a very long time, and we have relatively very low churn rate and so on and so forth.
Now, ApyHub has grown into a comprehensive API marketplace. How do you see its role evolving as more developers build AI-enabled applications?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is with AI, the cost of production has come down a lot, right? You could literally vibe code a tool over a weekend now, But the problem is we underestimate the cost of maintenance of after building the software. You have to maintain it, you have to operate it, and that is forgotten right now. So I think that is the problem that still exists today. That in the AI hype, people are forgetting it, I feel. So you still need to make sure that there is you need to maintain the software in terms of patching the software, making sure that the reliability of the software is really high. compliance, where you store your data, how you treat your data, GDPR or whatever. If you're in Europe, all of these things still matters and still is taken care of correctly. And this is forgotten. So I think over a period, what I feel ApyHub is doing with the marketplace is that ApyHub is providing the building blocks that AI agents can use as Lego pieces to put the software together. So while it's building a complex system, it doesn't have to reinvent how to generate an invoice, for example. So it can just say, okay, it built the whole platform for some order management system, but it can call a PDF service to generate the invoice from ApyHub, for example. So it can take a lot of these composable blocks and build more complex software on top of it. So that's how I see ApyHub staying relevant, not only relevant, but actually thriving in an AI first world, is that it offers a lot of these services that that AI agents can use to build more complex software. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I love the Lego pieces analysis. I think it's spot on. Um, Now let's talk about Voiden. You recently open sourced Voiden, which was earlier referred to as ApyHub Fusion. What
Mhm.
was the motivation behind open sourcing it, and how does it differ from traditional API clients or tools?
Yeah. So Voiden and now the former name Fusion, it came from a real pain point for us. As we were building a lot of the services on ApyHub, where we had 100 and 150 plus services that we are managing. We have to manage the documentation, the release cycles, the testing. The traditional tools started becoming a little bit too bloated, too heavy. We had to adapt our workflows around it. So instead of the tools helping us in our workflows. So no one single tool was also helping us. We had to use a set of tools to actually, for our specs, something to do our API testing, something to do our API documentation, and publishing our documentation and so on. So we started saying okay, let's build an internal tool. And that was the ApyHub Fusion, right? So it has an unorthodox trajectory in the sense of, the way, for example, it started out as closed source. It was very much integrated into our platform with the marketplace. And then once we started showing it to our customers, marketplace customers, when we were having calls and everything, and we would show these tools, and they would be like, "Oh, I love it. Can it do this? Can it do that?" And we started saying, "Okay, maybe there is a merit in actually offering this tool as a standalone tool." So we started offering that as ApyHub Fusion at that point, and it was great. I mean, it was really well received as a concept, and people started actually trying it out and giving us feedback in the initial beta alpha stages. And one thing we realized very quickly was every organization, or almost every organization, because we were working with organizations that had 100 plus developers normally, and they wanted to customize the ApyHub Fusion for their workflows. They loved it. And but then we quickly realized the way we built it as an extension of ApyHub, it was not possible, because we had to keep building the extensions. So we said, you know what, we realize there is a lot more potential, but we need to rethink on how we position it, how we present it, and we need to go and maybe offer it to the community. That was the realization that we had. So from that point onwards, we started pivoting towards what became eventually Voiden, which is we wanted it to offer completely decoupled from ApyHub, community tool where you can design, test, document, and publish and share your documentation and collaborate on it, but using every existing tool. So you can use Git. It's Git native. It writes in Markdown. And that's one of the reasons why right now, since we open sourced it, it's like a couple of weeks now, and we already have 500, 600 stars now already, which is again, we are not viral yet, but it's really well received, and the community is already contributing to the product. So it's great to see all of this. And one thing that people always keep saying to us is, uh, every other API client, if you look back at the history, I'm not going to go back 15 years ago, but if you look back at the history, one of the biggest products that changed the space was Postman. And Postman came when they started, it was a fresh take on API testing, API tooling. But then the problem is every other API client since then has been heavily influenced by Postman. So even if everybody says we are different than Postman, if you use the tool, they are like what I would call as the clones of Postman. They're different in different ways, but from a user experience and everything, they're the same. Boyden is the first one where we built it from completely. We reimagined what a modern API tool should look like for the next 15 to 20 years, right? I mean, all with what is coming up with AI or what is coming up with, how people are interacting with APIs. We kept all of this in mind, and we designed it to be almost like Notion for APIs, if I can put it like that. So you can see that, I mean, there is a lot of influence, slash commands, very modern, very clean. And that's one of the things that users typically say is like, this is nothing like what we have seen, right? So anyway, that's how I think it's different. And the last part is why we decided to open source it is really because we believe that the community will shape it and take it in different ways than what we can build it by keeping it to ourselves, right? We did that for a year to make sure that the core is really baked in and the foundation is laid. Now it's for the community to adapt it and tweak it, which is already what we are seeing now, which is fantastic, actually.
So when you think about the future of Boyden and ApyHub, um, what's the one of the best scenarios that you can dream of or think of or think it's viable for the next year, 2 years when you dream about it and when you see what's going and the trend of adoption?
Yeah. So for I think as I was mentioning earlier, we are in a phase where building things seems very effortless, right? You can spin up prototypes really quickly, validate your ideas,
Hmm?
and you can focus on is this worth investing or not? Like I'm already seeing that. Product managers who had to rely on engineers now go and vibe code a tool and are coming back to me, for example, and say, "Hey, what do you think? I mean, like, I showed it to the business, they liked it. Can you go back and integrate this into the product?" Right? But I think eventually, as in a few months' time, organizations will start to become mature about this, in the sense of when is it worth building it? The age-old question: build versus buy.
Yeah.
Even when you can build it, is it worth building it? Because is it worth maintaining it over a 5-year time? What is the ROI? Uh, ROI is not always in the cost of production; it's a cost of maintenance. I was recently talking to somebody, and then this idea came. It's like building a plane is a hell of a job, but running an airline is even
Oh,
painful, right? So it's like you can build your software. Okay, you manage to master it with AI and everything, but are you ready to operate it, right?
yeah.
So we have these discussions. I mean, like, I'm part of some discussions from certain people that ask me for advice. Is they're a security firm, let's say, and one of their engineers would come and say, "Can I can vibe code, or sorry, I can build a CRM for us."
Yeah.
Instead of, why do we have to pay X amount to this particular expensive software vendor? And the management sometimes gets like, oh, it's just so easy to build it. Yeah. And you can do this over 5 weeks to get a completely operational. Okay, let's go ahead. But then these are the places where I actually have to go and step in and say, you know what, maybe it's not worth it, because it's not a 5-week cost that you're looking at. You're looking at a 5-year cost of maintaining it and not being able to maintain it eventually. So the way I see this is that as the dust settles a little bit and organizations become mature about where to use AI and how they can augment what they're building, um, and the question of build versus buy becomes like, build versus integrate, right? I mean, like, what do I integrate? And I think my expectation for the marketplace, ApyHub marketplace, is that it is going to be in the next 2-3 years, it is going to be the most trusted marketplace for APIs and services that are used by organizations uh, to build components on top of, right? I mean, or services or software on top of, for example. And what we are doing already with the software and to ensure the trust is we are creating huge amounts of transparency. So if you look at ApyHub Marketplace now, we are one of the first marketplaces that actually introduces the certification. Where is the service hosted? How long is the data being retained? And what does it do with the data? What is the purpose of collecting this data, for example? So the purpose, I mean, everything that we see in GDPR and everything, we go the extra mile and actually make them digitally searchable artifacts, right? So eventually I can think of scenarios where AI can say, oh, based on your policy of this company, so let's say I'm working for one Fortune 500 company, based on the policy that you have, I can use X service from ApyHub because it meets the criteria that you have from not only the functional, but the non-functional elements, right? So, which is the security, privacy, and all of these performance and other elements, right? So, a data residency as well. So, that's for the marketplace. And for the Voiden, I feel the story is slightly different there, especially with the explosion of AI. APIs are going to be, maybe right now, APIs are mostly used by clients which are human facing, right? I mean, like your mobile applications, your web applications, and everything. But now agents are coming into the picture. They become one of the biggest consumers of, or they're slowly becoming a big chunk of the API consumption. So what we are doing with Voiden is that, first of all, Voiden has an integrated terminal command line, right? I mean, and that means we can integrate agents. You can work with agents like Claude or other agents within the tool itself. And you can create Voiden documents to create blocks, whatever you need to document, to create test cases and everything. So working with the tool by developers also becomes extremely easy without any additional plugins, none of that. If there are, it's great. But even without that, natively, it works out of the box. Second biggest thing is every document in a Voiden application is a markdown file, which is what AI agents love, right? Yeah. So your documentation is completely understood by AI, and it can cater for all the different scenarios. I mean, like, how to create test cases and everything. It can understand all of these things and produce the relevant cases and so on. So that's the second use case that I can think of. But what I really am excited about with AI and Voiden coming together is the fact that as you are designing your API itself, you can work with the agents which are behind the scene, creating the specs, making sure that everything from design to the testing to the documentation phase, everything can be done through Voiden, but using agents natively, right? So some of the decisions that we have taken, like having the terminal, which was painful initially when we launched, not a lot of clients had that, are turning out to be good decisions in hindsight. I mean, now, with these kind of things that we're seeing.
Super exciting. I love it. And you kept saying something that I think it's amazing. And I saw the other day the concept about the cost of maintenance and operation, right? And the other day someone was posting something on LinkedIn like, "Oh, I realized I could vibe code Calendly app, so I ditched my Calendly $10 a month subscription and I built my own. And now I get a 5% accuracy in scheduling my meetings, and I'm spending like 200 a month on XYZ AI subscription to fix it because it keeps breaking it." So, yeah, 100,
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
I'm bullish on agentic. Agents producing code and building applications. I'm bullish on it, right? I mean, we use it also. We deploy it very aggressively, but to solve the right problems.
Right.
there is a question, right? I mean, just because you can,
Should you?
yeah, you never paused, you never stopped to paused and ask the question whether you should.
Right.
I think it was something in like Jurassic Park or something like that. Just because you can now, I mean, like, doesn't mean that you should go just about reinventing every single tool that is in your stack that you're using from a third party, right? So it has to be strategic. I mean, like, where you deploy, and I think that's the crucial learning a lot of the organizations will discover, because I think they're also the management who initially might be not very aware of AI and the capabilities, might have given a lot of room for their teams to experiment.
Yeah.
But this is also really genuinely what I'm noticing is when I'm talking to customers, also at Hardwares and so on, people who have told us last year, like, oh, it looks simple enough. Let us build it, right? And they came back after a year and a half saying, like, yeah, we realize. I mean, it's not easy, you know. But year and a half lost in this experimentation thing,
Yeah.
So that's a risk, and I think it's also a matter of maturity. That will come soon.
100%. Now, ApyHub has grown organically and largely through bootstrapping. What have been the biggest learnings from building and scaling it this way? And what key decisions points shaped its evolution? Void and maybe open sourcing Void, of course, is one of them, right? But what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's one thing. I mean, but if I look at generally managing growth for us, the first thing is, like, when what I mentioned about when we decided to be bootstrapped.
Yep.
The problem of being bootstrapped is that it forces your vision to be really narrow, because you're focused on survival for a long time, right? So we spent a couple of years just to break even, to survive, right? I mean, like, we had our investments, we had to go. I mean, where we are investing in product and development and all of these things. So we had to be very careful where we deploy, how we grow, right, as a team, and where we deploy our resources and everything. So it there is a danger that it gets you sucked into having a myopic or a very narrow view of the future. Like, there were times where I couldn't think beyond 2 quarters, or maybe even 1 quarter, because that was my immediate priority, right? So that is the danger I see of being bootstrapped, is that, I mean, like, we often don't realize it. I mean, it's great to wear this as a badge of honor, right? I mean, now when we pass certain phases, we can say, oh, we've been bootstrapped, and yeah, that was a very brave decision. There was a lot of times I questioned myself. I mean, like, whether it was the right decision, right? I mean, to let go of the funding or these kind of things. So uh, but that is an important thing that I've learned, to stop and take pauses from time to time, to look at the big picture, where you're taking the company, where you're leading the products. Are you doing the right things? Because sometimes survival also means, like, you are making, you're not being very strategic, you're being very tactical. It's very short term, and that's great. But in as a when you're running the company, you have to look much ahead, sort of. That was one of the learnings that I had, of managing or stimulating the growth as well. The other thing is, because growth generally tends to be organic. I mean, like, unless you hit a your product hits virality or something like that, it's organic and slow, and you have to be able to manage the expectations around it, because you, in a era where you hear AI tools, like, growing in valuations. I mean, like, they've become $1 billion companies and everything. You also have to manage your own expectations. You're creating a long-term value for organizations. You're creating, I mean, like, we are not in the same space initially. How do we manage our expectations? How do we manage our growth, and not look everywhere else and get distracted and depressed, or so just have the blinds and look at your own journey. I mean, what you're doing, are you doing the right things, and so on. So that's how we managed to survive those difficult phases for us. And the second learning that I had was also, because you're not because this is the first time that we were doing it, both me and my co-founder together, Nicholas. We were doing this together, and it's the first time that we are doing, even though we've been part of founding teams or we worked in senior management for other companies, but it was the first time that we were responsible for a company. So there was a lot of times where we forget that we are the co-founders and we become employees or we become confined to our roles. I would default to like I'm the architect, so I become more or the CTO part of it, right? I mean, so I had to consciously make the decision that no, this we are founders, we are actually running the show here, right? We have to be responsible for everything. So that was very important to keep in mind. And the other thing, again, I'm talking a lot of the lessons here because I think that is more interesting than the successes. Because the other thing that I've learned is to say no to a lot of people, because it took me almost 2 3 years, 2 years at least, that I remember, that where I was listening a lot to people who I thought had more experience. I mean, who genuinely on paper had more experience than me, and have done this story 10 times, for example. But I had to force myself to be a bit more assertive and be more confident in what my vision was. And it's like you don't want to ape or copy something that somebody is saying, and then when it doesn't work, you can't blame them. That's also the realization, because it was eventually your decision, right? So that's the other learning that I had. I mean, which was a bit difficult, because you start becoming much more assertive, and people feel like you're ruffling the feathers. But it was quite important to for me personally to feel like I am uh, right or wrong. We are going to do it a certain way, for example. And the last thing was the learnings, or how we were managing the growth, is really to focus on what I mentioned earlier about the experience with Edcast, where when I was working with customers, I was not having a vendor customer relation. So I genuinely went to them and I worked with them as if, not as if, but we created shared goals. Like if they succeed, I succeed as a result, right? It's the same thing that we brought to ApyHub. And when we work with our customers, like with the large customers, we work with as if their success is our success, right? So and it actually worked out. I mean, a lot of the customers, I mean, ended up becoming expanding their engagement with ApyHub and using more of our services, and recommending us to others, and brought. So it's a great feeling. I mean, that we've earned some trust of that scale and nature, right? I mean, in so anyway, that's how we managed. I mean, to be customer obsessed and focusing on doing the right things in a way. So yeah, I hope that answers again the question.
It does. No, it's and there's something you said. Everything you said is very insightful, but something specifically stuck with me. You learn how to say no, and as an entrepreneur, even if you are navigating the unknown, because you have not been there, you are foreseeing what's coming, but it's not like you've been there before, right?
Yeah.
But you learn to say no, and you learn to trust yourself and to trust. Would you say you're trusting your intuition? You're trusting your intuition plus very logic based reasoning. When you are saying no and you're saying I know this is the way, how much of that is intuition? How much of that is logic?
Um, I think for me, a lot of it is based on logic. Uh, but I have also noticed, I mean, there are times where it's sometimes very intuitive way to react,
Yep.
because it goes against your values, or it almost implies that you have to compromise on certain things that you said that you are not going to do it.
Yep.
So some are instinctive, especially when they are more goes against your values, that kind of a thing. So when it comes to that, I think, I mean, logic comes for me secondary, in the sense of when it is at a fundamental value level. But when it comes to strategy, I think, I mean, there I have to also trust my own insights and my own views, because the truth is also that, I mean, like, my experience and exposure is kind of unique. I mean, for me, I mean, like, in the community, in the among the circle that I stay in,
Yeah.
I can talk to a lot of the business. I can talk to the engineers. I can write code. I still do. And I go back all the way to working with board members. I mean, I can do presentations. So, I mean, even before I started ApyHub, I have been doing all of these things,
Yep.
right? I mean, at various points. So I can deal with a lot of audience, and I can understand where they are coming from when with their questions or with their suggestions and everything. So I have learned to take it all with a pinch of salt, because what the developers might say, they don't know enough of the business. And if the business is saying something, I know that there are technical reasons why you couldn't go there or something like that. So I have to use, what I'm saying is, like, I have to use my own logical analysis to also say no to certain things. And the other times it's, as I said, I mean, more instinctive, and that we should do this, and I'm like, no, 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 we're not going to do that.
Um, Samuel, I have one final question to you. This could be the topic for another podcast, but let's keep it at one final question to you. When you're
Okay.
leading and scaling technical teams across startups, what ultimately matters most to you and why?
um I think I've heard this very early in my career. I was interviewing with somebody, and this leader, I mean, mentioned to me that, if you want to become a great leader, you have to care about people, process, and product, because we are in technology. And this was, and then he went on to explain his thing. But these three things, I mean, stayed with me. I mean, like, what he said. And that has been, I mean, everywhere I worked since then. I mean, like, I actually kept that as my guiding principle, because if you don't care about people, they burn out. They're not productive. They're in the wrong, let's say, roles, and they don't trust you. All of that. If there is no process, it leads to chaos. I mean, it's confusion. There's a lot of friction. People are not very productive again. So that's not great either. And if the product is not there, I mean, none of the other two things matter if you don't have the right product, right? I mean, so these three things, I mean, I try to try to always take care. Um, and when I'm scaling teams, I will focus now a little bit on the people aspect of it, because at the end, when you everything I think I've been able to do, and if I'm able to do other things, multiply my time, and do other things with ApyHub, Artwas, and Voiden, and all of these things, it's because my team supports me, right? And the way I feel my team is able to support me is that, and this is again something that I've tell everybody, every single hire that comes into the team, I tell them that I need only three things from you. One is, the first thing is, I need you to learn, to be willing to learn, and willing to grow, and willing to contribute. So if you do these three things, we are golden. And the reason I say this is because learning for me is not about learning a technology, learning a new piece of tool or a product or whatever, but it's also about, like, learning to grow as a professional. Like, I mean, how do you communicate? How do you articulate? How do you express your thoughts? Or how do you share your feedback? Right? I mean, all of these things are important. Growth is one of the things that I'm surprised by. Like, when I used to work in larger companies, a lot of people are happy. They stay in a role. They're happy being there for 5-6 years, because they are like, I'm working for a very big company. It's a, whatever, the top 10 software company. I'm set, right? But there is no ambition to grow, and, like, take. And ambition is not just in titles, right? I mean, it's in responsibilities. I mean, put your hand up and say, I can do this, I can do this. That's the way I grew in my career, right? I mean, like, I ventured, I offered my help in areas where nobody asked, but I put my hand up and I said, I'm going to be responsible for this. And I took on more, and slowly that's how I grew, and that's all I asked the team as well. And the last thing is, I mean, if you're not contributing, yeah, I mean, there's no point, actually. It's like, that's what matters. I mean, you're learning and growing. because you're contributing, right? I mean, so if you're doing these three things, everything else sort of can fall into place. I mean, like we can manage all of those things. That's the thing I say. And luckily, so far, I mean, starting from Leapest, Edcast, and all the other gigs that I've done before starting ApyHub, and since starting ApyHub, we always had people try to follow these things, and we had so many. What makes me proud is we have so many what I call as homegrown leaders who started as junior developers and everything, and I see them as architects, as senior managers, and these kind of things, starting from my Leapest days, right? I mean, like, and it makes me immensely proud when I look at how many careers blossomed over through this journey. And again, it's not a personal credit. I mean, it's about the culture. It's about the organizations giving me also the freedom to run these kind of criterias to be put in place. So it's and the people themselves, right? I mean, like nobody can force anybody to be anything unless they want to become the best versions of what they can be. So I think, I mean, I was more or less. I mean, it's not like I don't have any failures in this, obviously, but when I look at the positives, this is what I look at, and I think, I mean, like this is where for me, what I reflect back, I think, I mean, one of the most satisfying things is the people that I got to work with.
That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to contribute, and you are golden. I love that phrase. That can be um, that can be part of an upcoming book coming from Samuel. Would love to read it if that happens. Samuel, no, really, this has been an amazing episode. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing so much about you, your story, ApyHub, and everything that you're doing and you will continue to do, and the way that you lead teams and how you build culture for your teams.
I appreciate the time and and great insightful questions as well. So made me reflect back on the last 15 years of journey. So it was very nice to walk that, let's say, the nostalgia trip. Thank you.